Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to an amazing session brought to you by Bocconi University, all the way from Milan, Italy. I can see quite a few of you who are trickling in. We have a power pack session for you in store for you today. And like I mentioned, today we have Bocconi University with us. It's going to be a great and exciting masterclass with one of Europe's leading institutes for higher education and research in social sciences with a strong focus on management and business related fields. For those of you who are coming here and joining us for the first time, Bocconi is one of the top ranked European schools worldwide with students, faculty, and alums from over 100 countries, offering you vibrancy and diversity of the community so that you get an opportunity to do an exchange of ideas, thrive, and grow. And of course, a power packed, like I mentioned, a power packed session today. We are going to be talking about recent trends in AI and mathematical optimization. So, what we are going to be doing in the session today is exploring the latest breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, focusing on how mathematical optimization and game theory are shaping the future of AI. Joining me on the panel today are quite a few distinguished guests who have joined us from Italy, from India, including myself. So, I'll start with a quick round of introductions. My name is Sabahat Herzog. I represent Seed Global Education. We're a UK headquartered company facilitating interactions between top global universities, like the one that we have with us here today, and prospective students like yourselves, giving you a chance to connect with the faculty and the admission teams of these institutes, giving you a taste of the kind of programs that are being offered to help you make informed choices about your higher education and career plans. On the panel with me today is Dr. Laura Sunita, who's the Associate Professor in the Department of Computing Sciences, MSc in Artificial, and also the Program Director for MS in Artificial Intelligence. Thank you so much, Professor, for taking out time from your busy schedule and joining us today.
Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
So just to give you an overview of about Professor, she was internationally recognized for her contributions to combinational optimization and approximation algorithms. She is a recipient of a widen Award from Netherlands Discovery Supplement Award, Early Research Award, and a Best Paper Award at the Symposium of Theory of Computing Conference in 2010. So you are in for a treat today because you're going to get to hear a lot more about this subject and this topic from someone who is doing wonders in her field. Along with Professor, we also have Mario, who's joined us today. Thank you so much, Mario, for being here.
Thank you, Sabat. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm in charge of guidance and recruitment at Bocconi. Thank you.
So Mario is the Director of Guidance and at the Recruitment Office, overseeing student recruitment for both undergrad and graduate programs, both in Italy and internationally. His extensive background in student recruitment and international education has positioned him as a key figure in fostering global academic collaborations at Bocconi, and we always love to have him here. And of course, last but not the least, we have Richa Agarwal, who takes care of all student recruitment in India for Bocconi. Thank you so much, Richa, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sabahat. Good evening, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Really excited to be part of this session and looking forward to a very engaging session. And like Sabahat mentioned, I'm part of the guidance and recruitment team at Bocconi University under the leadership of Mario. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Richa. Richa is your go-to person, everyone. If you're looking to get into Bocconi University and want to know more, I'm going to be dropping her Calendly link for you shortly. So at any point in time, with any questions, Richa is going to be your helping hand and letting you make that Italian dream of yours come true by connecting with
Absolutely.
us. So,
I'm happy to discuss all the fashion and football offline, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richa. I see we're close to 150 of you and quite a few of you are still trickling in. But before we dive into this very, very exciting topic, I'm going to take some time and run my first poll question for the evening for all of you who've joined in on the screen in front of you. Which of the following aspects excites you the most about studying in Milan? So when you're talking about Milan, about Italy, I want to know which of these aspects is something that really sort of makes you think about, yes, Milan is a study destination for me. Italy is somewhere that I want to go. Is it the academic opportunities being offered? Is it the networking opportunities? Is it quality of life? Is it the cultural experiences and immersions that you will get to be a part of? Or is there some other factors which you find very, very attractive to make Milan a study destination for you? So, to all of you who have tuned in on the screen in front of you, which of the following aspects excites you the most about studying in Milan? Is it academic opportunity? Is it networking opportunities? Is it the quality of life, cultural experiences, or something else? I'm going to keep this poll running for a couple of more seconds to allow some of you to drop in your answers before I end it and share the results. Once again, to all of you, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. I can see students are still trickling in, but to all of you on the screen in front of you is our first poll question for this evening. So please go ahead and cast your votes. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now and share the results with everyone. Great. So 28% of you are looking at Milan as a study option because of the academic opportunities being provided closely, followed by, of course, the cultural experiences and the networking opportunities. Thank you so much for giving your votes. With that, I would now like to sort of hand it over to Professor to get started with her presentation. Over to you, Professor Sunita.
Thank you very much. So as I said, thank you again for the invitation. I am actually really excited to be here and to give this presentation to you. Okay. Yeah, let's go into presentation mode. Perfect. So as already announced, I'm going to talk about recent trends in artificial intelligence and mathematical optimization. Actually, I'm personally working a lot, in particular in the area of optimization, and I hope to convince you that this is a really exciting topics with a lot of things happening in the last years. And I wish to convey to you and to foster in you curiosity towards studying it. So let's start with artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence? This is actually very difficult questions to answer because it's an area which is multidisciplinary and involves several different aspects. So giving a precise definition is it's a bit it's complex, but we can actually trace back one big questions that I guess all of you have thought at least once, in particular during the last years, and we can trace it back to Alan Turing, who is the founding essentially of the area of computer science. So can machine think? Well, in the next animation, I have to say that at the moment, personally, I would say that the answer is still no. We don't really are facing a thinking machine, at least yet. But no one can deny that AI systems have been shown to be capable to perform incredible tasks and at times even surpassing human capabilities. So this is the area at artificial intelligence, and all of you I'm pretty sure are familiar with a lot of AI systems and are using them daily. Like, for example, speech recognition like Alexa or Siri or something like that, or text generation and image generation. Probably the most famous is ChatGPT, but we can go to a lot of AI applications like self-driving cars or facial recognitions, or even to other areas like biomedicine and health with protein structure recognition and helping screening. So all of this have in the past years had a huge increase in use and a big success. So the next question with the next animation, I would like to answer today or try to give an idea today of what is the key behind this success, and in particular, how has this been possible, and why now? Why now and not, I don't know, 20 years ago or 10 years ago? So what are the main important milestones that have happened? So one thing to say is that when we talk about modern AI, modern artificial intelligence, we mostly refer to what is called machine learning. So just to give an idea, machine learning is a bit different in a way from the old traditional approach. In the old traditional approach was based essentially try to describe what an object is by trying to somehow identify a set of universal characteristic. So if I ask you, what is a table? How would you describe a table just by looking at the picture? But you could say, well, maybe it's a rectangular surface with 4 vertical legs. Okay, but if I go to the next picture, you see that this does not fit the definition, right? I mean, because here, the first one, I have a round surface. So one could say, okay, maybe I should just change the definition. It's just a plain surface with it could have whatever shape with 4 vertical legs. But then we have the other table, the second one here at the bottom, that has a lot of vertical legs. And again, the next one then has obliquous legs and so on. So if we try to write a program and we try to describe what is a table, we'll have some sort of fundamental difficulty with the approach. And this is because indeed, even you yourself in your head, I'm not sure you can exactly give a precise definition of what is a table. On the other hand, you are perfectly able to recognize one when you see, unless it's a really, really weird table. But most of us, when we see a table, we are able to recognize. And how did we learn it? We learn it essentially just because we've seen a lot of tables. So this is indeed the machine learning approach. So rather than essentially find a definition, so rather than we try to write a definition of what is a table, we try to kind of learn it by itself automatically, just by looking at millions and millions and millions of examples. Okay, this sounds like a good sentence, but the key question is still again, how? So machine learning has a variety of techniques in general. The one that is, let's say, mostly responsible of the very big success of the latest years is in particular one which is called deep learning. So deep learning, in a way, you can think of it as something that tries to mimic our vision learning tools. So what happens when we see a table? When we see a table, we essentially get an external input, and somehow this external input get processed into an internal representation in our brain, because as I said before, we do not describe exactly what a table is in words, but internally we kind of know what a table is. So we have an internal representation of it that allows us to distinguish between images or between objects, if something is a table or if it is not. So deep learning, we try to mimic this. And so in particular, we replace the central pictures with another one, mathematically. So from a mathematical perspective, what happens is that we can model this by using a tool which is actually, or object, if we want to say it, which is actually called neural networks. So what is this? So a neural network is essentially composed by a combination of neurons and connections. So these arcs that you see between neurons, these are connections, and these are connections whose strength can actually be tailored. So you should think of it as essentially assigning a parameter to each of these arcs. So we assign a parameter to each of these arcs. The parameter needs to be defined, but we will allow the network to find the right parameters by itself. So essentially, we give a lot of examples, and given one particular example, you can imagine that these input layers, for example, they represent the pixel of the picture of your given table. So you have a set of input layer which corresponds to the pixel of the picture that here represent this table. Now we have some parameters here. That we need to define, and we will, given a lot of example, we will try to change these parameters in iterative manner. In particular, in an iterative manner, we are going to change the strength of this connection. So rather than defining ourselves what this parameter should be, we start with arbitrary one, And you should think about this big neural network as essentially something that computes a function. Given this set of pixels, we tell you whether this is a table, yes or no. And this function will depend on the parameter that you set here. So we try to feed the network with tables, and each time a table is misclassified, so if we are not able to give the right output for a table, we can trace back the error and change the strength, so change the parameters along this arc, so that until all examples that we see are correctly classified. So from a mathematical optimization perspective, all of this become essentially a huge mathematical function, big mathematical function to actually minimize. So mathematically, we are given n examples that corresponds to these n pictures, and we need to search for parameters w that essentially minimize the error, which is given by this big function over here. But that's the main tool which I want to highlight. That's the main idea, is that essentially this parameter, so this is the function that depends on this w, which are the parameter that we have to find. And while these x and y's are essentially representing the picture that we actually have. And so like this becomes a big non-linear functions that we want to minimize. And this is a problem that mathematically has been, it's been studied quite a lot. This one is a classical unconstrained non-linear minimization problems. So if we go next, these kind of problems, as I said, for this kind of problem, there are several algorithms that could be used, and in particular, one that goes very well with this type of a neural network is so-called gradient descent, which is a particular algorithm that, given a point, tries essentially to improve the objective function of the function that it maximizes, and it's based on a mathematical notion of gradient. And one important thing which I want to highlight is that computing the gradient of functions, which is behind these very big neural networks, turns out to be relatively simple, because it can be calculated actually quite fast, I would say, with a method which is called backpropagation. So just to summarize, long story short, what I want to highlight, what I want to highlight is that all the training of the neural network essentially relies on optimizing a very big nonlinear functions, and the networks tries to optimize it, so try to find the parameters by looking at example in an iterative manner. And so once it learns to classify correctly all the tables that he has seen, so essentially once the W that we end up finding allow us to classify what the table is, so once it learns, it can predict, and it can predict in a massive scale. So we can give a lot of other pictures that the network has not seen and ask whether this is a table or not. So long story short, this is the main tool behind deep learning. Introduce these several layers of what is called this neural network and translates, instead of finding a definition of what is a table, translate into find parameters for which this big function classifies best the data that you have. Now, going next, I have to say that this approach can be used for other things. So it can be used not just to learn, to classify if something is an object of a certain point or not, but we can actually go beyond that. So in particular, this approach can be used to learn, for example, strategy in games. So here is an image of something that happened actually a few years ago. In particular, an AI system called AlphaGo by Google DeepMind actually beat the world champion in a board game which is called Go. Actually, Go is a game that essentially asks for two players to put stones, black and white stones, on a board. And essentially, the idea is to control. There is a certain notion of controlling part of the board, part of the board, and essentially the goal is to is to arrive to control the majority of it. I have to say I have not, never really played, but this is considered to be a very, very complex game, for example, much more complex than chess. And yeah, so that was a big kind of surprise when a few years ago, this a few years ago happened that, like an AI system was able to beat the world champion. And this happened like decades before experts really thought this to be possible. And actually a few years later, this also happened with another game, which is reported here on the right, which is essentially this time an AI system by OpenAI that defeated the Dota 2 world champions. And yeah, so again, this to say that you can learn much more than just classifiers. Of course, you need kind of different techniques, but you can even learn about strategies in games. And one thing that makes these things quite successful are settings which you have clear and well-defined rules. And again, you can learn by looking at a lot of examples. Now, going again next, yes. So this is also essentially, so this idea of this neural network and training and learning the right parameters for your neural network. It is also at the core of the most advanced text and image generation system, like, as I said, maybe one for all, just to name the one that is more famous, is ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT looks, I mean, the way he behaves, right? So it's a chatbot. So the way you chat with it and go on sounds pretty different from guessing if something is a table or it's not a table. But how was it trained? So essentially it was trained on a lot of text. And so there were a lot of sentences presented to ChatGPT in which some words were missing, were removed. And the training phase, so when you try to find this parameter, you essentially were asking ChatGPT to complete the sentences by essentially to predict what were the words that were missing from sentences. And he was trained on an enormous amount of text, so more than, hundreds of millions of books. And you can think of that, I mean, in general, maybe a human arrives to read, I don't know, on average, if you assume you read something like, I don't know, one book per month, then you could probably arrive to read towards your entire life 1,000 books. And instead, ChatGPT was trained on hundreds of millions of books. So he learned how to complete sentences. And then, as I said, once you learn, then you can predict, you can go on a massive scale. So then what it does now, when you present some sentence, it looks at how the sentence starts and try to predict what would be the next word that makes more sense. And yeah, and indeed, this turned out to be quite extremely successful. Great. Now going next, the other question, which I said at the beginning, which I think it's something very important. I'm talking about machine learning, neural networks, deep learning, and so on. But I have to say that all of these concepts were already, they are not new in a way, so they were already known since decades. So why is that we are talking about all this explosion of artificial intelligence now and not, I don't know, 20 years ago? Okay, so the beginning of this AI revolution happened essentially around in 2012 somehow, because what happened is that at that point, some researchers actually from Canada participated to a visual object recognition competition called ImageNet, where essentially the goal is, given a set of images, we want to essentially to recognize. So it's we need to correctly classify them, and the goal is, of course, to be as accurate and precise as possible, so to do less mistake as possible. So that year in 2012, actually the AI system that won the competition was a neural network-based system, actually called AlexNet. And the key point is that he won the competition with respect to the other AI system by quite a large margin with respect to the previous year. So there was a very significant improvement that surprised at that point was kind of a surprise. And what was crucial. So what was the new ingredient, the key ingredient used there, is that that was the first neural network to be efficiently implemented on GPUs. So these are essentially specialized microprocessors that are actually quite a lot used for games, in particular for graphics, and that's where the G comes from. So actually, what happens then, we can summarize this as follows. In the last 20 years, there have been a lot of progress in terms of games. And in 2012, people actually realized that all these GPUs usually used in other contexts, as I said, for gaming, indeed instead allowed, so the calculation that you do when you want to train a neural network, so this calculation of the so-called gradient, which I told you before, so the way you compute these parameters, it's a calculation that is very well suited for actually GPUs. And so at that point, it was clear that one could have a lot of computational powers, much more than one could think of before, essentially at low cost. And so then, since then, there have been like several milestones, both in refining the techniques and refining, the processors and so on. And so there has been an enormous progress since. And another thing also that I want to mention and I want to underline is a little bit going back to what I said at the beginning. So AI is a multidisciplinary area. So of course, we talked about mathematics, where the mathematics comes into play, algorithm with the gradient descent, but there's also a lot of effort from an engineer perspective, because here the implementation was actually crucial in order to realize that these things could work and then could essentially scale. Now, going next, there are kind of several challenges ahead, right? It's not everything, everything seems very, very nice, but there are a lot of things which we have to still understand and pay attention. The first things, of course, and probably all of you have an idea of this, are ethical perspective. So as I said, the strength of these AI systems, what they are really best at, is learning from example. So essentially, they are very good in reproducing what they kind of can infer from a massive set of data. But of course, this implies that they not only learn the status quo of the system, but if the status quo of the system has some mistakes, the system will also learn the mistakes. And for example, if the data contains some biases, then the system automatically will learn them too. So here I just actually use a very common and nowadays and a popular language translator. And I'm translating from English to Italian. Now, I don't know about, to be honest, the Indian languages, if you have genre for things or not. In English, for most of things, they are actually neutral, but in Italian instead, we have way more genre for names, for nouns. And in this case, I asked to translate the doctor, the nurse, which in English does not have, this could be referred both to male and female, for example, but automatically in Italian, instead, it translated like il dottore, which is essentially a male noun. It could have been also la dottoressa, which is the female counterpart, but it translated il dottore. And instead for the nurse, it automatically translated it as l'infermiera, and this A at the end is essentially using the female genre. So it could have translated also l'infermiere, which would have been a male, but instead automatically it used the female genre. This just to say that there are some implicit biases that we could not be aware of. And of course, we can go next with this reflect also in some other context. So yes, next again, this reflects also in some other context. So for example, suppose that we want to try to use AI into settings in which we actually make some decisions that in a way have some ethical aspect in it. Then if we train our system on a set of data set that have bias, it could have quite significant consequences. For example, we could think of a company that would like to automatize the system of deciding who to hire. But if we do not realize that, for example, in the past, for certain position, we hired more men than women, or vice versa, then the system could infer that men and or women are more suitable for the job. And this is something that actually happened a few years ago. This is what I'm reporting on the left. But also, I mean, it's just an example. Another famous one was, for example, for an AI software that was at the point used in the United States to kind of predict future, which person that has committed some crimes, I mean, how likely it is to reiterate a crime in the future. And yeah, this was a system called Compass, and then some researchers actually at a certain point realized that it was actually acting in a biased ways towards Black people. So these are very important issues, and of course one could think that the data is quite important, so one has to do a cleanup of the data somehow, but that is something non-trivial, because, for example, even if you try to have data and try to hide the corresponding feature, like maybe I hide, the gender of the gender of the person, or I hide the ethnicity and so on. These are also things that maybe could be inferred in other ways anyway from the data. So these things are particularly, I mean, are not trivial at all. They require some studies. And this also reflects, as I said before, to some very important challenges from a mathematical perspective, mathematical optimization perspective. So, in particular, we are experiencing in a situation that usually it's I would say it's uncommon, because here we have kind of theory behind the practice. So what happens is that we do have a clear understanding of how the networks work, these neural networks works from a mathematical perspective, because as I said, it's computing functions, given parameter is computing function, and that's how propagates the information. But the networks are so big, like, for ChatGPT, the number of parameters are like hundreds of billions. So they are really big number of parameters and of variables that, although you understand what's going on in terms of calculations, but semantically, it's not that easy to see what is happening. So a deeper understanding of the neural network structure from a mathematical and theoretical point of view, it is needed, and is currently a big subject of investigation. How can mathematical optimization techniques help further development of AI? We need more, transparent way and more systematic way to explain the results in order to try to avoid the problems which I just said before. But also another thing that I want to mention is that actually interactions can go both ways. So one thing I want to stress is that this is shown to be a very, very powerful tool. And in my opinion, since this is the right approach towards it, is try to see, okay, we should use it clearly, responsibly, in a responsible way, but we could actually try to exploit the powerful that this has. And so what I mean by interaction can go both ways is that we can ask ourselves, how can mathematical optimization help further development in AI? But we could also ask ourselves, can AI help further development of mathematical optimization technique? And I have to say that in the past years, this is also becoming a very, very interesting area of research. So in the next slide, I just give two examples, but there are plenty of them really about papers of researchers that actually try to use large language models, or anyway machine learning approach, to try to actually as an auxiliary, as a help to find theorems, mathematical theorems, and proofs, and so on. And me myself, for example, I actually just yesterday, when I was trying to prepare for this talk, I actually asked ChatGPT to solve one of the exercises that I give to the students to my mathematical optimization class, which is in particular in modeling a certain problem as an integer linear program. And I have to say, the basic model, it did perfectly with a lot of explanation. Then when I try to ask more complex function to model, it does mistake. But if I help him by saying this function is non linear, can you actually change it into a linear function XO, and the end it arrives to the right answer. So all of this to say that it is actually a tool that maybe it has something to offer also as an auxiliary for trying to do something in mathematics, and not only the other way around. With this, I don't want to say that you should use it for your assignment or whatever. There's something not I mean, to do it, not to do it, or in particular, at least to do it responsibly. But in general, as it's a very powerful tool that could help. So the interaction goes both ways, and I found this extremely interesting. So yeah, I would like to spend just the last couple of minutes about just saying why artificial intelligence, particularly in Bocconi University. Okay. So as I said before, yeah, this next definition shows that artificial intelligence is a multidisciplinary area and the intersection of many major scientific disciplines. And, you know, this interaction between multidisciplinary area and programs is actually one important value for Bocconi. But also in my next message is that for what is related to the master programs in AI, this is actually a new program that we just started in 2023 as the first year, that comes from having introduced a few years ago the bachelor program. And so since there were a lot of new things that happened in the recent years, like this brand new program has been tailored in particular and designed on the most advanced techniques. So really about the mostly concentrated on the ones that are giving the most important and astonishing results. And in particular, that's our vision to be designed that way. But also, you know, like the masters has a strong focus on fundamental skill in basic science, and this is quite actually new among the programs in artificial intelligence that are in general offer, because one important distinction that I want to make is that the goal is to training future AI makers, not just AI user, because right now the cost of actually computing or designing training in particular system is quite high. So this create kind of gives powers just to, I mean, few companies that have actually the possibility to train this system. So it's very important that people not just use it, but learn how these things actually really works, because, I mean, the hope and the idea is that this does not become just such a powerful resource, does not become just available for few, an elective amount of people, but it could be hopefully go and reach more and more everyone. So just to conclude, then I want to say that AI is shaping a new future right now, and there are actually remarkable and exciting challenges ahead of us. I hope that I give you a glimpse. So, and one thing that I want to share for you is that this is truly fantastic time to be a student. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Sunita. That was really insightful and helpful. As a non-student also, it really helps me broaden my horizons and get to learn a lot more about all of the exciting things that are happening with AI, which is the new buzzword, and with mathematical optimization. Quite a few questions have come in, but I'm going to request the audience to wait a little bit more, because next I want to invite Mario to speak a little bit more to us about the programs, about the university, what's happening in Italy, and why should Bocconi be your number one choice if you're considering studying in the Europe. But before that, I'm going to run my second poll question for this evening very quickly on the screen in front of you. For those of you who are looking at studying abroad as an option, what stage are you in your study abroad journey? Are you someone who's still understanding and exploring your options? Are you someone who's already started shortlisting universities, or are you those who've already started your application processes for this year to get an enrollment? So very quickly on the screen in front of you, let us know where exactly are you at in your study abroad journey. And the next bit of the presentation, believe me, is going to help people from all of these three categories make an informed choice as to what they need to do going forward. With that, I'm going to end the poll quickly and share the results in front of you. So 80 majority of our audience is still understanding and exploring their options, with a few who've already started shortlisting and applying to universities. So with that, I hand it over to you, Mario. Let's try and make these folks know a little bit more about the university.
Thank you so much, Sabahat. Thank you. Thank you also to Professor Laura Sanita. It was very, very interesting. So let me just share my screen now, and I go to try to be as effective as possible,
Yes.
but not too long. So, okay. So, as I said, I'm in charge of the guidance and recruitment office, and I take care of recruitment, undergraduate, graduate, together with for the Indian market, particularly with Richa. So let's start from the city. Italy. I don't need to make a commercial on Italy, which is the most visited country in the world and the one with most UNESCO sites. So it's very, very, very nice country. But Milan is very peculiar, even in Italy. You see the skyscraper there is the most modern university. It's a university. The most modern city, sorry, and it's a city where there are 8 universities for over 200,000 students. You know that Milan is the second city in the world by ratio of students among the population. The first one is Boston, and second one is Milano. And Milan, it's also very, very international, and it's the business capital of Italy. So if you may think of any multinational company that is based in Italy, that will be in the Milan area, in the Lombardy region area, the region of Milan. Lombardy, which is the second richest region in Europe by GDP, according to OECD. It's also the fashion capital. I don't need to mention that. So let's go to Bocconi. So let's start to position Bocconi. Where is Bocconi positioned in the international education arena? So we're constantly ranked first in the European Union, in any discipline in the social sciences. These are the disciplines that we teach, and it's in the top 20 in the world. So you see here lots of rankings, especially QS, but we're also present in Financial Times or the Times Higher Education, any rankings that you may think of. But let me also underline that, it's been, part of the presentation of Professor Sanita. We're very strong in research. Bocconi is a research university, and in fact it's not easily you find all the universities that are top in rankings like Financial Times or QS top also in research. Bocconi is both of that. It's top there and top also in research. For example, when we're talking about European research grants, Bocconi is number one in Europe in the disciplinary area of individual markets and organization, these are the grants given to scholars in our region, and Bocconi is number one recipient of that. So it gives you an idea of the quality also research. Bocconi has always been very much international. So all our network is made of quantity, so over 2,000 opportunities every year, 286 partners all over the world, and quality. So in each continent, in each country, you have the best schools. For example, in the US, we partner with all the Ivy League schools. In some cases, we are the only exchange partner of them. We're partner of all the top UK university, of course, Indian universities, Australian universities, European universities. So all over the world, you find partnerships that allows our students to go abroad, have an experience in top universities, and in the meanwhile, to get added value in class by welcoming students from top universities all over the world. Also, Bocconi is very much connected with employers. Bocconi has been founded by an entrepreneur. Mr. Bocconi was involved in the textile industry back 120 years ago, actually. And the connections with the employers has been always super strong. We are now have now active collaboration with over 4,000 employers, companies, international organizations. And as a result, every year there are several placement and internship offers very many by each single student. We take advantage also of the networks of our alumni worldwide in all the big cities, all over the world. And in Italy, we have what we call chapters, alumni chapters, with a chapter leader and big communities. So we have 75 chapters all over the world. So connections that create opportunities for our students and young graduates. The placement is super good, is one of the highest ranked by the Financial Times in their rankings in economics, in management, sorry, or finance. So it's 95.7% employed 1 year after graduation, but most importantly, almost 80%, so 4 out of 5 are already employed the day they graduate. So they have to take a day off to get a graduation, to be on campus for the graduation day. Another important, let's say, data is the fact that more than a third work and live abroad. That means that we have opportunities outside Italy, 36.4%, but also in Italy. And in particular, as I mentioned before, in the Lombardy region. So lots of opportunities here. Basically, any Bocconi graduate get opportunities in all the top places all over the world. Of course, we have, for example, in London, lots of people who study finance are placed there, but you have people placed in Paris, in Germany, in America, all over the world. Even Indian students who decide, we have Indian students who decide to stay in Europe and get a job there, or to go to the UK, or to go to the US, or come back to India as well. So we have several examples of different trajectories, but all of them get to very nice and relevant jobs in all the top employers. Let me go deeper into the academic offer. So these are our masters, the graduate programs. We have programs, let's say, in the management area. So international management ranked by the Financial Times. We have marketing. We have management of arts, media, culture, and entertainment, and then management of innovation and technologies. Then we have the finance courses, accounting and finance. Then we have econ and politics on the other side. The economics and social sciences is a very prestigious course that the best graduates here go to all the best PhD programs in academia all over the world. They decide to work in international organizations, politics and policy analysis with Sciences Po and LSE. And then we have let's say, the newer part of the academic offer. Starting in 2017, we expanded the area of courses in the most, let's say, fascinating. We had a very good example today, and with more potential, let's say, area in the studies, but also in the job market. So all this area that goes under the umbrella of data science, mathematics for artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. You see the master in artificial intelligence, but also other masters in the STEM, let's say, areas. The Bocconi and the Italian, I would say, by law, master is 2 years. So 2 years, basically the first year is courses, academics, and then the second year it's more specializing. You have electives, you can choose, pick some of the courses you want, specialize in a certain major. But also you can take advantage of our study abroad programs. You have a mandatory internship to take. You saw the data before, almost 80% were already working during their studies and got a job already before graduating. The 2 years masters versus 1 year masters. So my 2 cents on that is like, 1 year master, you can do only academics. 2 years masters, especially in the second year, you can, build up on your curriculum. You can have internships, you can have exchanges, you can do, several things. And basically, when you enter the job market, your curriculum is much richer. So that is the advantage of having the 2 years masters. Disadvantages, it takes 2 years instead of 1 year, but I don't think actually this is a disadvantage, because you have very, very long working life cycle, so about 40 years or more, and 1 additional year or 1, let's say, less year to enter the job market doesn't make the difference. Admissions. So basically, we take into consideration 5 elements. 2 of them are very quantitative. So a score, let's say, by a test, which is the test could be the GMAT or the GRE or the Bocconi test, one of them. Then the grades, university grades, the university you are attending, so GPA. And then the more qualitative elements are a CV, a personal statement addressed to the director of the first choice. You can sign up, let's say, for up to 5 Bocconi Masters, but you direct the personal statement to the director of your preferred choice. So in case of AI, it would be Professor Sanità, and explaining why you want to take this master, what are the features that may most interest you, and what is your long-term perspective, why you're interested, generally speaking, in artificial intelligence, for example, if we're talking about this master, but this is valid for any master. And then, actually, sorry, four documents, not 5. And then, there is an application fee, and then you need to prove your language, but that wouldn't be a problem for students studying in India in English. We have a sort of rolling basis selection process and application process. So there are 5 rounds. So for the students who are going to get the bachelor, going to graduate from their bachelor next year, so in 2025, there are still 4 rounds to go. So the next one is the second round. It's in the end of January deadline, then March, April, and May. We already gone through the first round, which ended at the beginning of November, and we've seen for the 3rd year in a row, an increase in terms of international applications to Bocconi. Very, very good time for us, but also makes the university a bit more competitive than before. Not a bit more competitive, really more competitive, because there are lots of applications for all over the world. But I encourage anybody to apply if interested. One word about the fees and funding. So basically, Bocconi, has the idea of welcoming anybody, admitting anybody who is talented, independently from the financial conditions. So Bocconi put on this year on scholarship about 56 million, 0.7 in scholarships, which was 23 million about 8 years ago. So 7 years ago. So big investment in the recent years. And as a matter of fact, 35% of the students receive any sort of financial aid, from fully funded to special discounts. The fee of Bocconi is 18,200 euros per year. So you're about 36,000 for the 2 years master. So it's very, very much competitive. If you compare Bocconi with all the other, let's say, top universities that you can find in the international arena, very competitive. But as said, more than a third don't even pay that fee, because there are lots of scholarships. 2 types, divided into 2 types. Well, we have merit-based scholarships, which are given to super talented students, top students, but several hundred, I would say, every year. And these are based on merit. There is no need to do anything. You just present the documents requested for the admission. And at the time of the offer, if you're admitted, we can give an unconditional offer with scholarship. There are very specific also scholarship for women in the STEM areas, like AI, for example. This is to balance a bit more the gender in these courses where there are more males. Hopefully this will soon change, and we try to work a bit on that to give more opportunities to women. Also, we have need-based scholarship, and these are based on the financial situation of the applicant and of the family. And basically, you do apply, you get admitted, let's say without the merit scholarship, you get admitted, and then there's a separate process. You do apply for a need-based scholarship, and then the funding office will review your application, and after basically a month, will give you the answer. Since we are here with our good friends of SEED is also giving lots of scholarship for all the universities they cooperate with, and Bocconi is part of that. So you can also apply to Bocconi and at the same time apply to the SEED scholarship through SEED and Sabat. I think she can give more information. These are the details of Richa, and then I will later introduce her by herself, but these are the details of Richa. Richa is in our strategy of expansion and increasing of applications from India, which is actually happening, is our key person there, is the person, the Bocconi rep, let's say the only Bocconi rep in India. I know sometimes there are people who say that they work for us. No, the only let's say rep is Richa. So please do get in touch with her if you need to. And then these are our let's say also but Richa's address. It's really more important here. So I'll stop here. I hope, Sabat, I was quite
Yes.
okay with timing. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mario. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. The students did get a lot of information out of it. To everyone in the audience, before I jump into the Q&A section, we have posted Richa's Calendly link on the chat. I am going to repost it once again to just make it pop up on your screens. Would request you to kindly click on the link and select your slot so you get a chance to have your profile evaluated, have a one-on-one discussion with Richa. Also, as Mario mentioned, yes, we do have the Bocconi University scholarships for Seed Global Education for awards worth 20,007 euros for the fall 2025 intake. Your upcoming deadline is in the next 4 days. I'm going to post the link for the application once again as well, so you can go ahead and apply to these scholarships. Thank you. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to start with a few questions. Professor Sanita, my first question will be for you. A lot of students have asked about, whenever we talk about AI and the critical aspects involved in it, a lot of thought process and a lot of questions are being raised around the legal implications and, of course, the ethical implications about how is AI really going to, what are the ethical implications about deep learning in business, or how is it going to be accepted internationally? Is it something which is going to take over jobs, etc.? So if you can just shed some light on that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, yes, thank you very much for the question. I think this is indeed a very important aspect, and I only briefly mentioned a few during the presentation. So there are several aspects to be considered. So ethically, I said already the ones about like implicit discrimination and biases, but of course there are others. So very important ones are, for example, the fact that one could create fake content. How we're going to distinguish this is very, very important. I mean, being able then to, it's a powerful tool, right? But could also be used badly, and this could create very important consequences, and also legally. For example, there is a lot of discussions about authorship. So like if you create something from content, who actually has the copyrights, and also maybe are you allowed to use a voice which is very, very similar to someone voice that that maybe even if he or she that they don't agree. So these are very, very important aspects. Also, like it could seem at a certain point that some jobs in a way that artificially done by human could be replaced, but can they really be replaced given that there are the implicit biases that we actually talk about it. So the legal aspect is something very important, and is new because all these aspects pop up prominently. They've been there already before, but now with this use pop up prominently. I have to say, for example, that right in this last year, there is this AI Act from the European Union, which is kind of the first legal framework on AI in which they try to address this issue. But there is it is necessary to have an effort from all kind of nations together, so internationally. So this is very important aspect and a very big challenge ahead of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sunita, about that. Mario, my next question is to you, and Richa, even you could sort of jump in over here. A lot of students are curious about tips on how to make a compelling application to Bocconi. While it's fantastic that the international applicants have gone on incredibly year after year since the past 3 years, that does make the competition pool a bit more tighter for Indian and international students. So what are some tips for them to sort of leverage and make sure that they have the right kind of profile to get into Bocconi?
Richa, you want to take that, or I'll...
Mario, after you. You should go first.
Okay. Then you I know you're more expert than me on these students, so may give more specific, let's say, advice. But generally speaking, I would say there are the quantitative elements, as I mentioned before, and this is very relevant. Of course, it's a threshold. If you're not good with, you don't have a very good GMAT or GRE, if you don't have a very good GPA, then of course this is a threshold. It's, you have to be a good student to, on the paper. And then of course the let's say more relevant, given the fact that you are, you have good quantitative elements, is the qualitative part of it. Because, we have this at the master level, particularly, we have this way of presenting and submitting to the director of the degree of the master program the profiles of the students who are who are applying for a master, and the professors is gonna read all the, let's say, letters, is gonna check all the CVs, is gonna analyze the performance of the students, and then try to create a class which is homogeneous on many point of views and of brilliant students. Of course, the competition is tough, but I think it's not everything based on numbers. I want to give you this message also. It may not be that you have a higher GMAT. I clearly remember a few years ago a student who had a stellar GMAT, stellar. It was 740, 750. But the students did write a letter to the director, which was like, I don't know, 7 lines, very, very short, very, very, very bad. We have here expert of ChatGPT. Don't ask ChatGPT to do that. You do it yourself. And the problem was that the director said, why should I take that student? Why should I take? And, he actually didn't take the student. And then we talked to the students afterwards, and then he reapplied in a couple of rounds after with a proper application. He said, I was so tired, I didn't know how, I did a mistake, whatever. But, this is not given for granted that you're a very top student on the, let's say, on the number side, then you will be a perfect profile candidate. I don't know, Richa, or even Professor Sanita, if you want to.
So
No, I think
basically,
that's
just to sort of conclude, what you are looking for is someone who comes in with a holistic profile as such. Not one
Absolutely.
aspect can sort of, outweigh the other. They need to make sure that they have the right checks and crosses in all of the boxes as such.
Absolutely.
Richa, anything that you would like to add on? I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were going first.
No, same thing. I think Mario has beautifully covered all elements.
Yeah.
That there are marks, of course, yes, but we also have a resume, we also have an essay. So the why is also important. Why Bocconi? Why the XYZ program? And please consider this application as a quick placeholder for you to pitch your profile to us, because we don't know you. So you need to help us understand you. And we totally agree and understand that marks are not a true reflection of a candidate's or potential leadership qualities. So please utilize the resume and essay judiciously and very wisely. Please consider these as serious elements for your profile. There is equal and important impetus given to all 3 parameters. So that's all I wanted to add here.
Thank you, Richa. I know we've sort of come to the end of time, but I'm going to take a couple of more questions quickly if everyone on the panel can stay with me for a few more moments, if that's okay with everyone. Great. So my next question is for Mandaz, and I think it's a very relevant question given our topic for today. They want to know if they're curious if the MS program at Bocconi will provide the depth of technical expertise. Professor Sanita, if you could shed some light on this,
Yes.
required for AI or ML, considering that, of course, like I mentioned at the very beginning, AI being the buzzword of today. They want to know, by pursuing a program, will that sort of go hand in hand with giving them the skills which is required in the workforce of today once they finish their graduation?
Yes, thank you very much for the question, because actually this is a very important aspect that I want to highlight. So the answer is yes. So our program is a tech program, like it's a STEM program. So you need, we put a lot of emphasis of the strong foundation. So mathematics, computer science, physics, engineering, and so on. So because, as I said before, we want to be able to train AI makers, AI builders, not just AI users. These are two different things. So there is a lot of technical stuff that you need to know. So another thing I want to stress is that, for example, the bachelor program that is prior, to this master here in Italy is officially recognized as a math program by the Italian system, and this master is officially recognized as a computer science program. So like. In general, as this is called the scientific classification of the program. Now, I don't want to scare, people that comes from a very maybe more different, less technical areas, because as I always says, there is no gap in knowledge that you cannot cover if you are willing to put talent and study in that. And this also align a little bit with what was saying before about the application. But for this particular program, because it's a tech program, I actually go and have a look at which kind of exams, which are the preparation, if there is enough technical preparation. Then we offer at the beginning preparatory courses for those who do not have the right background to recover, but those who have do not have to think that this will not be technical enough, because our goal and our program is designed to be actually a tech program, and we provide background for people who don't have it with preparatory courses at the beginning.
Okay, great. So any student who's coming in from, let's say, a different background, you all will be doing a background check, giving them the right kind of courses, etc., guiding them in the right direction so that they do not miss out, so to say, with the rest of the class. That's brilliant. The next couple of questions, I'm going to sort of join them up together. Mario, Richa, Professor Sanita, all of you, sort of feel free to jump in. This is more to do with international support for Indian students who are going to study at Bocconi, the career and the internship opportunities available for them. I know, Mario, you spoke a little bit about it, but a lot of our students always think, for most of them, this would be their first time out of the country. So that question of the return on investment, how am I going to make it out there, is a huge factor. So just a little bit overview about the kind of support that international students are given. What are, let's say, what are the career opportunities, and what does the career services team at Bocconi do to sort of handhold these students coming in?
Yes, basically for the time in Milano, we have a very, very supportive international, let's say, offices taking care of international students. We have about now overall 48% of students are coming from outside Italy. So really have a truly international universities, over 100 nationalities. So that is in our DNA, but even more in, let's say, in the last 15 years. The percentage of international students has expanded a lot in the last 15 years. I would say we're talking about 20%, even 15%, 15 years ago only, and now we're about 50-50. When it comes to career, yes, this is a very, very common question about students coming from outside Europe, I would say, and namely in this case, India. You have the right to when you get out of when you finish the university to get a visa which is for an additional year. So right after graduation, you have a visa that allows you to work for an additional year. And this is the key, because you saw the figures. Everybody gets a job at Bocconi. That's not a problem. Bocconi is very well recognized in Italy and in Europe. So if your aim is to stay in Europe, then you have a university which is very much recognized. So all the companies knows us, not only in our country, and that gives you an advantage because you can stay in Europe with this 1 year extension and then working on the study visa, but to work for 1 year, and then in that year you have to play your game and get your company to gives you a long-term visa. And many students do that. We never had basically a student or a young graduate who got back to India because of lack of opportunities there. In the cases where they came back, it was because they decided to do so. Maybe immediately, maybe after, maybe they had their own businesses in India, or they work for companies in Europe which has contacts with India. So it's the opportunities are there. Of course, the university is not giving you the working visa, because we cannot do that. So you have also always to work with the company and then with the institution. So it's not guaranteed, absolutely. It's not as easy as for students coming from Europe, of course, but this is valid for Indian and from any overseas students. But it's something that many students got to make it without particular problems.
Thank you so much, Mario. And just to sort of quote on what Richa always says is, it is the finance and fashion capital of the world. You've looked at the figures that Mario shared, and you've seen the kind of placement opportunities that the students get at Bocconi. So I don't think this should be an issue for you. With that, I would really like to thank our panelists for taking out time from their busy schedules. Thank you, Professor Sanita. Thank you, Mario. And thank you, Richa, for a wonderful and insightful session. I know we've taken up a little more of your time than originally planned, but thank you so much. And have a great afternoon back in Italy. Rija, have a great rest of the evening back wherever you are traveling to right now.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Sabahat.
Thank
Very
you.
quickly before I wrap up, I
Mhm.
see a question which is, can I do AI after graduating in medical field? So I would
Yes.
like to use this opportunity that we've this year introduced a new program, which is Masters in Artificial Intelligence in Healthcare Space. It's a dual
Mm.
degree with Humanitas University. So absolutely, folks, students coming from the healthcare or medical background, absolutely have a dedicated AI program for you. Over to you, Sabahat.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richa. Thank you so much about that. We've shared the details for Richa to get in touch. We've also shared the application deadlines for the Seed Scholarship for Bocconi University, which is coming up. For any other questions, etc., please feel free to reach out to Richa directly, and she will be guiding you. So thank you so much once again, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon from whichever part of the world that you've joined in, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
Thank
much,
you
you,
very much.
everyone.
Sabahat.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Have a
you very
great day
much.
ahead. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.